Hospitals have always unsettled me. Maybe it's the smell of antiseptic, or the sterile white walls that seem to absorb all the joy from the air. Or perhaps it's the endless rows of identical rooms, each holding a story of pain and hope. Whatever it is, hospitals are places I prefer to avoid. But sometimes, life has a way of forcing you into the places you least want to be. I was visiting my friend, Jake, who had been admitted to St. Mary's Hospital following a car accident. It was late in the evening, and the hospital was eerily quiet. The fluorescent lights flickered occasionally, casting unsettling shadows in the otherwise empty hallways. As I walked toward his room, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was watching me. Jake's room was at the end of a long, deserted corridor on the 3rd floor. The closer I got, the heavier the air seemed to become, as if the walls themselves were closing in on me. When I finally reached his door, I hesitated, my hand hovering over the cold metal handle. I took a deep breath, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. Jake was asleep, his face pale against the white pillow. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor was the only sound in the room. I pulled up a chair next to his bed and sat down, feeling a little more at ease now that I was no longer alone in the corridor. I had been sitting there for maybe 15 minutes, lost in my thoughts, when I noticed something strange. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure standing in the doorway. I turned my head, but the figure was gone. A shiver ran down my spine. I told myself it was just my imagination, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As the minutes ticked by, I tried to distract myself by looking around the room. That's when I noticed it. The door to the adjoining bathroom was slightly ajar, and a faint light was coming from within. I was sure the bathroom light had been off when I arrived. Curiosity getting the better of me, I stood up and walked over to the door. I pushed it open slowly, half expecting someone to be standing there. But the bathroom was empty. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding and turned off the light. As I walked back to my chair, I heard a faint whisper. I froze, straining to hear more, but there was only silence. An hour passed, and I started to doze off in the uncomfortable chair. I was jolted awake by the sound of footsteps in the hallway. They were slow and deliberate, echoing off the walls. I stood up and peeked out the door, expecting to see a nurse making her rounds. But the hallway was empty. I closed the door and returned to my seat, my heart pounding in my chest. Just as I was starting to relax, the door creaked open. I jumped up, my eyes wide with fear. Standing in the doorway was a nurse I had never seen before. She was old, with a stern face and cold, piercing eyes. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked past me and stood by Jake's bed, looking down at him. Her presence was unsettling, and I felt a chill in the air. After a few moments, she turned and walked out of the room without a word. As soon as she was gone, I felt an overwhelming urge to follow her. I stepped out into the hallway and saw her turning the corner at the end of the corridor. I hurried after her, my footsteps echoing in the silent hall. When I turned the corner, she was gone. The hallway was empty. Confused and a little scared, I went back to Jake's room. I sat down and tried to calm my racing heart. That's when I noticed the file on the bedside table. It hadn't been there before. I picked it up and opened it, my hands trembling. Inside was Jake's medical chart, but there was something strange about it. The dates were all wrong. It listed treatments and medications that hadn't been administered yet. As I flipped through the pages, I found a note tucked in the back. It was written in a hurried, almost frantic script. "Do not trust the midnight nurse. She is not what she seems. Leave this place before it's too late." My heart was in my throat. I didn't know what to make of the note, but I knew I had to get out of there. I looked at Jake, still sleeping peacefully, and wondered if I should wake him. But before I could decide, the room grew cold. The heart monitor started beeping erratically, and the lights flickered. The door swung open, and there she was, the midnight nurse. Her eyes were darker now, almost black, and her face twisted into a cruel smile. I backed away, my mind racing for an escape plan. "You shouldn't have come here," she said, her voice dripping with malice. "This place is not for the living." I turned and ran, not daring to look back. The hallways seemed to stretch on forever, each turn leading me deeper into the labyrinth of the hospital. The walls were closing in, and I could hear her footsteps behind me, slow and deliberate. Just when I thought I couldn't run any further, I saw a door marked Exit. I sprinted towards it, praying it wasn't just another dead end. I burst through the door and found myself in a stairwell. I took the stairs 2 at a time, not stopping until I reached the ground floor. I stumbled out of the hospital into the cool night air, gasping for breath. I looked back at the building, half expecting to see her standing in the doorway. But there was nothing. Just the silent, imposing structure of St. Mary's Hospitals. I never went back to that hospital, and I never found out what happened to Jake. The experience haunted me for years, and I still have nightmares about the midnight nurse and her cold, black eyes. I don't know what she was or why she targeted me, but I do know one thing. Some places are not meant to be disturbed, and some secrets are better left buried. To this day, the sight of a hospital fills me with dread, and every time I pass St. Mary's, I feel that same chill, as if her eyes are still watching, waiting for me to return.